Hello and welcome. This is our second panel discussion of the evening. For starters, my name is Troy Lowery, and I have the pleasure of serving as moderator for this panel discussion. I've been at Mason for the past 7 years in one capacity or another, and I'm currently serving as the Director of Student Outreach for the one and only College of Humanities and Social Sciences, which is just a fancy way of saying that I like to talk with folks. So again, I'm really happy to be here with everyone this evening. For everyone's situational awareness, this panel discussion is going to be scheduled to end at 6:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 1850 hours, depending on how you tell time. Speaking of time, at this time, I would like to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. And let's start with, first up on my list is Sam Silver.
Awesome. Hi, super excited to be here, Troy. My name is Sam Silver. I have my bachelor's in sociology from Cal State Fullerton, as well as my master's in public sociology from Cal Poly Humboldt. I am currently a user experience researcher, which also means I like talking to people all day. So excited to talk about how I get to use all my skills in sociology in a career in tech today.
Thanks, Sam. Next up, we have Emily Zhang.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet y'all. My name is Emily. I'm currently a senior at the George Washington University, pursuing my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And I also have a double minor in international affairs and law and society. I'm currently an intern at Transportation Security Administration in their intelligence and analysis unit. And I also currently serve as a board advisor for DC Project Connect, which is a nonprofit that serves incarcerated persons in the DMV area. I also currently have a side project, a grant project that I work on to help support children of incarcerated parents in DC through bibliotherapy. I'm really excited to share all my experiences with y'all tonight.
And you're not busy at all, are you, Emily? Thanks, Emily. Next up, we have Elizabeth Portaluppi.
Hi, nice to see everyone. I'm Lizzie Portaluppi, pronouns are she or they. I graduated with my bachelor's in sociology from Mason in 2018, and I'm currently working at Mason now as the office manager of the Student Support and Advocacy Center, which is a free resource for students to get support. And what I say is any barrier to success you have, and if it's something we can't directly help you with, we'll find who can. And I'm also currently in our counseling program at Mason and specializing in school counseling.
Awesome. Thanks, Lizzie. Courtney. Do we have Courtney with us? How about Diana Mateo?
Yes, hi everyone. So happy to be here as well. Excited to see former professors for sure. So yeah, my name is Diana. I graduated from George Mason with a sociology degree in 2018 as well. My BA was in sociology with a minor in immigration studies and a concentration in childhood and youth. Currently, I am an immigration paralegal in DC for a private firm, and I am working towards passing my LSAT with a fair enough score. So hopefully law school's next.
Awesome. And just real quick, because oftentimes I have streams of consciousness here, right? Jagana and Nathaniel, y'all did an excellent job just based off of the introductions on putting these panelists together, right? Like some outstanding experiences and just current job descriptions. So I'm excited for the next hour, what we have in store for everybody. And I'm excited to answer some or ask some of these questions. But let's go ahead and kind of move forward into our Q&A portion, our questions and answers portion, which is the central purpose of our discussion panel this evening. As was the case during the first panel discussion, we encourage you to place your questions in the chat box. But to get us started, I'm going to throw out a prepared question to our panelists. And please note, if you were with us during the first hour, some of these questions might have already been asked to our first set of panelists, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with asking them again because it allows us to introduce new perspectives into the conversation. So without further ado, let's go get at it and let's talk about how one develops a career where sociology is practiced. And I think that one of the last panelists, Carmen, mentioned something that really resonated with me as it relates to this question, and that is sociology is in everything. Again, we have an outstanding cast of panelists, sociology alumni, advanced undergraduate students, and professionals. So this question is for everybody on the panel. So how has thinking sociologically about your education, your work experiences, and the activities you pursue in your free time, how has these things helped you investigate your professional interests? And Diana, I see you on my screen right now and you're nodding. So I'm going to call upon you first, if that's okay, unless someone else wants to jump in.
Sure, no problem. So I think thinking sociologically has really developed all of my interests, really. But professionally speaking, I remember one time in classical theory class, a professor told us that sociology wasn't a course of morality or ethics. And that to me, it struck a little bit strange because that's how I viewed sociology in the first place. So I realized that she was right, but that, thinking sociologically about such things like morality and ethics is what has driven me to pursue the career that I'm in now. Because I understand the way that systems often impact certain people in unfair ways. So even though the field in and of itself is not to teach you moral or ethic, I think that it still provides a very good understanding of the way that systems, again, impact us, and how, that in and of itself makes you, prepares you for a more moral or ethical understanding of the world.
That's excellent, Diana. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of what Diana was saying, I think thinking sociologically has just allowed me to approach different problems and solutions in my career in a different way. For example, user experience research, diversity and inclusion became a very hot topic within, the last couple of years, but this was something that I had always been thinking about and was conscious about as I approached my research, which voices were included in the research, which voices weren't included in the research. And so I think it really allows you to approach your work in a more kind of conscious and, like Diana was saying, with a more ethical and moral approach to it, but it really allows you to tackle problems and have those harder conversations. And I think you're better equipped to have those more difficult conversations. And then based on those initiatives, we actually were able to put forward an inclusivity index where we measure how inclusive our research is being through our screener questions and through other measures as well. So I think it allows you to approach problems and things in a unique way.
Beautifully put. Lizzie, Emily?
I really resonate with both of those answers. Trying to come up with a succinct answer to this is so hard because, as like the last panelist talked about, it really is everywhere. So when I was first, kind of brainstorming of, how do I use sociology in my job? It is so deeply ingrained now in the work that I do that I'm not noticing it. And it took self-reflection for me to think, what even am I doing? But it's just so connected. And I think it's in comparison with people who lack that background that I notice it the most. When folks don't see the connections of the issues that our students are going through with things that are going on in the world and in the country, or they don't understand that why all of our students that are a part of this marginalized identity are experiencing these issues. And then I'm able to really connect with the other folks on our team who have a background in sociology. And that's really where we can see that this is just everywhere in our work.
Yeah. And Lizzie, would you say that sociology and really understanding and having that background, thinking that way, allows you to approach different problems and different solutions just holistically, seeing how everything's interconnected?
Absolutely. And it's honestly our office at the Student Support and Advocacy Center, we have like somewhat of a holistic approach. So like, for example, if a student comes in that's, presenting with academic difficulty, upon talking to them, we find maybe there's housing insecurity going on. Maybe they're experiencing a lot of bullying, that's racially motivated in their classroom, and all of these other things that are impacting them. And to really help our students, we have to understand they're intersecting identities, but also all of the intersecting oppression that comes along with it from, like Diana was talking about, all the institutions and how they play into a role. So absolutely.
Sure. Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like Lizzie said, I agree with everything everyone's already said. But for me, sociology has definitely played really a lot into my grant project, which actually started from a paper I wrote in a sociology class. So the root of, supporting children of incarcerated parents, that came from my understanding of the issue of mass incarceration and the criminal justice system approached from a sociological perspective. And as this project has grown, I can definitely say that, yes, like the moral, the ethical, the more empathetic view that I have for this subject that I'd never been introduced before came from my studies in sociology, from theorists, from such a huge combination of my classes. And yeah, even when I don't recognize that I'm thinking sociologically, I think in my work, I'm just like, oh, I'm supporting this group of people. Like ultimately the support comes from sociological means that have been researched in the past, interventions that have come from these sociological roots. So sociology has definitely been in like every little part of this project, even if, yeah, I'm not thinking of it so directly and so like actively being like, oh, is this a sociological means of support? It just happens to be. And I think my approach to this project and everyone that I've worked with has some degree or background in sociology that has really come together to kind of like make this grow in a way that I didn't think it could before.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Awesome responses from all of you. And kind of piggybacking off of that question, kind of based off of your responses, you all mentioned jobs, projects, obviously as part of the response. A question just came in through the chat, and this is a great question. What is the path that led to your current careers? And as we all know, oftentimes a path is not straightforward. Sometimes there are some curves, some detours, some unexpected challenges, but definitely interested in hearing your response to this question. So again, what is the path that led to your current careers? And I'm looking for head nods, and I'm seeing Sam nodding. So we'll start with you, Sam.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. So yeah, my path to my career. So I started grad school with the intention of going into academia and being a professor. So that was my intended career path. But while I was in graduate school, I actually had the opportunity to be a research consultant for the Humboldt Area Center for Harm Reduction. And that was a center that was doing a lot of work for different, drug consuming and houseless individuals in the area. And what I had learned during my opportunity there was kind of really the value and importance of research. We did a photo elicitation project with consumers of Hatcher's services and created this great presentation and helped drive a lot of empathy to these folks. And that's kind of when like the light bulb went off for me of like, oh my God, there's like a lot of power in research to, drive empathy and kind of like Lizzie was saying, really promote these like really holistic changes and movements forward. And then I just kind of stumbled into user experience research and didn't realize how much it had aligned with sociology in terms of all of the methodology. I was really just looking for research-based positions. But I mean, user experience research is about advocating for the user, advocating for all different kinds of users, making sure that it's accessible to folks of all different kinds of walks of life. And I think that sociology is so ingrained in that I didn't even really realize, and it just kind of worked. And 5 years later, here I am. So yeah, that's kind of my path and how I ended up here.
Awesome. And you hit on something very key there, Sam, where you said, that sociology is ingrained in so many, and I'm paraphrasing, right? Sociology is ingrained in so many different job areas. And I think one of the panelists from the last discussion mentioned that sometimes it's difficult to type in sociology jobs and find something, boom, sociologist, right? Et cetera, et cetera. It's everywhere. And I think it's really interesting to see how by fortuitous circumstances or by fortuitous happenstance, your experiences led you to realize the validity and your passions associated with the user experience-based research. So that's really cool. I think maybe as an undergraduate, you didn't think to yourself, I'm going to work in user experience-based research one day.
Nope, didn't think I was going to enter the tech world. And honestly, when I originally applied for the position, I was like, I don't really know if this is going to work. I don't see a big connection to sociology. But once I got there and realized it was all of the same research methods, if not, I was even more prepared because of my degree in sociology. And that's when I kind of realized that sociology was in places that I didn't even know it really existed. And so that was really cool.
Awesome. What about you, Lizzie?
Like a lot of folks, messy. It is not, I totally agree. It's not a linear path. Was humbled a couple of times. When I first graduated, I was working at the Center for Social Science Research, or I should say, when I was an undergraduate, I was working at the Center for Social Science Research, working in our survey lab, conducting research really over the phone, but also online surveys. So talking to people for 30 minutes, entering their responses, as part of a larger team, and also working for Institute for Immigration Research, which led to meeting the folks at the Immigrant Learning Center in Malden, Massachusetts. So unexpectedly applied for a position that someone at the IR at Mason suggested, say, hey, there's an assistant director position open in Massachusetts. You've met these people, you know what they do. And I was like, I'm not cut out to be an assistant director. I'm 23, and I accepted the position, moved to Massachusetts in my Honda Fit, and whatever I could fit in my Honda Fit. And I served as the assistant director for our Public Education Institute. So it's an immigrant serving nonprofit that essentially operates a English learning center, really. So free English courses for English language learning adults who don't have access to things like ELL in grade school like we have. But I worked in the public education sector. So what we did was educate folks and try to combat the misinformation or disinformation we were seeing in the media about immigrants. So even just talking about the history of immigration in America, my favorite memory there is we taught immigration to a 5th grade class, and we started with talking about how animals migrate, right? How like butterflies migrate. So it was super important experience to me. And then after a year there, I had to move back to this area for family reasons, which I'm very, very grateful that I made that decision, even though it was very difficult. And I was applying, I think I applied to 50 jobs. I feel like it was like a lot of jobs. And while I was in the middle of waiting for a nonprofit job to like go through, I think I had 3 interviews, and I was like, are you guys ever gonna bring me on? I started working at the survey lab again. Catherine, who works in the survey lab, said, hey, I know you're back in the area. Do you wanna, work as a supervisor in the survey lab? So that connection I had in undergrad paid off when I was, without health insurance, in between jobs. Just it's very side note, it's very demoralizing applying for jobs when you don't have a job. So take that, just hang on to that if you're feeling it, that it is real, and I validate it. But long story short, amazing experience in the survey lab as a supervisor, and led to finding out about this current position at Mason. And it wasn't until doing all of those little things that I even considered myself as someone who would be an office manager. I honestly think that in undergrad, I would be like disappointed that like I wasn't some, fancy dancy researcher or, PhD, but the work I'm doing now is so valuable and I love it so much that I'm so glad I had like the opportunity and privilege to follow that path to get here today.
Yeah. Beautifully put, Lizzie. And I want you to hold on to that thought. I'm kind of summarizing it and saying just resiliency when searching for jobs. We've got a couple of questions in the chat. And so in just a little while, there is a question that I'm going to start off by asking you first. Okay. Thank you. Emily.
I personally feel like I'm the least qualified to answer this question because I don't have technically a career yet, since I haven't graduated, but we'll definitely say your words, Lizzie, about, resilience resonate currently in the job search. So it's definitely a process, but something, just keep pushing through. But I would definitely say my path to now and like, considering, a quote unquote 5-year plan from now has changed a lot since I entered as like a freshman. During COVID, I was really able to get in a lot of internships because, things were virtual and I can kind of fit in more stuff. So I've had a lot of really great experiences with TSA in various divisions, with the State Department, and then also getting to work with nonprofits. Something that I never thought that I would even be like remotely interested in. Like the nonprofit world wasn't something that I considered for me. I was more interested in the federal government. But I think it's doing all those internships, taking all these opportunities help me realize what I was and wasn't interested in, which kind of helps kind of narrow down my, future career path, because things that I thought I would really enjoy, I didn't. And then working with nonprofits is something that I never considered, but it's something that I love doing now. So, my ultimate career goal is one day to go into federal law enforcement, but, the way things are looking now, you might find me, in a nonprofit. So things are just like constantly in flux, and like my kind of mantra for like getting anywhere is like be flexible and take opportunities where you can get them, and kind of see where they take you, because a lot of the opportunities I would never have thought to say yes to have kind of taken me to the best places and like got me to meeting the best people and like have gotten me here today. So it's kind of, yeah, Leslie said, it's messy, but hopefully it works out.
Yeah, and seeking out opportunities, really just taking part in a variety of different experiences are so centric. I think that everyone would agree to the undergraduate, the graduate experience, and just hitting on internships just a little bit more. You said it best, and again, I'm paraphrasing. Internships are important for a couple of different reasons. The first one being figuring out what you like and what you don't like, right? But then also you're building up your resume, right? You have experiences as an undergraduate student that you can then market to these different career fields, to potential employees. And I think that that's very important to do, because there are a lot of people out there in the world who are graduating with sociology degrees, criminology degrees. So what are you doing that sets yourself apart from them? But I digress. Last but certainly not least, we have Diana.
Yeah, so my path to where I am now, I am an immigrant myself. I'm from Guatemala. I was born there, and I came to the United States when I was 9 years old. So immigration has always been a topic of conversation in my household, outside of my household, just in my everyday life. But I never really thought about it as a career path, particularly because I'm also a first generation college student. So careers in general have never been, a topic of conversation in my household. And so it was really up to me to kind of find mentorship, to kind of find opportunities. And so when I started studying sociology, initially the first class I ever took was in 11th grade. And I completely fell in love with sociology. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this existed. And when I was a senior in high school, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do social work, because I didn't think that sociology was a major. And I figured that through social work, I would learn sociological things, which probably, but not mainly. So then I started attending NOVA, Northern Virginia Community College, and I met a professor there, and I asked her, so this is a major? And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Great. I love it, because I love what I was studying. And so that's what I declared at Mason. And so fast forward to my senior year at Mason, I remember that I actually had a conversation with Dr. Sorelli, who's here tonight, and she, she persuaded me to sort of like quit my master's program, because I had started my master's in sociology by then. I was doing the 5-year program that Mason offers. And I had a conversation with her because I felt lost, and I wanted to speak to someone who was a sociologist and did sociology things daily and did a lot of research, because I had heard the sociology jobs, a lot of them pertain to research. And so I talked to Dr. Sorelli, and I was telling her, I have an interest in sociology, and I love sociology. I love everything that we study, but something is just not like clicking for me about pursuing my master's in it. And she was like, don't do it. Have you ever thought about being a lawyer? And that's when I was like, a what? And she was like, you should be a lawyer. I think you would be a great lawyer. And I think that was like the first time anyone had ever told me that, or anyone had ever put becoming a lawyer in my head. And so I started to wonder, okay, well, what can I do to see if I like being a lawyer? Because I had also had other friends who had mentioned that after they were legal assistants, they didn't enjoy the work. So I started to look for opportunities within the office at Mason, previously known as ODIME. Now I think it's CCEE. And they are great advocates for many marginalized groups. And so I went up to my mentors there and I was like, what can I do, to begin thinking about law school? And she was like, well, what about being a paralegal? And I was like, what is a paralegal? So I was very blindsided to a lot of things. And I think it had a lot to do with being a first gen student, because I think that after college, I felt once again like a senior in high school that was like, so what now? Or yeah, like what now? What do I do in my life now? So she knew someone who was a law clerk at a law firm. And she was like, I'll refer you to her, you can talk to her. And I did. And her firm, luckily, conveniently was hiring at that time as well. And I applied and I got the job and I've been here ever since. So that's how I got to where I am. So it's sort of like, thank you to Dr. Sorelli
Yeah.
in a way.
Diana, that's a cool story. That really is neat. And it just shows you the power of reaching out and specifically to your faculty mentors. So major props go out to Dr. Sorelli, for having that probably difficult conversation with you, right? But everyone else in the room, listening in, right? If you don't have a faculty mentor or you're not visiting your professors during their office hours, do so, right? There's so much value that can be added to your perspective just having these conversations. Perfect example with you, Diana, to see where you're at now. That's awesome. We're going to stick with careers, right? So far, we've heard a lot about passions, but let's delve into that a little bit deeper, right? Let's delve into those murky middle gray areas as it's associated with passions. I'm reading this verbatim off of the chat box, and I'm going to start with you, Emily, all right? Piggybacking off the path-based question, we all have different passions that lead us into our certain paths, right? What advice would you give to a sociology student that has too many passions and is having trouble picking one to base their future off of?
So I would also love to hear other people's answers to that, because that is also a question that I constantly have. But I think for me, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things simultaneously, which has been really great. Something like one of the only benefits that COVID has given me, like that virtual life. So I've been able to kind of juggle multiple things at once and kind of see, where that passion is. And like I said before, some of the things that I had passion for before, I realized I won't like as a job, which is something that was kind of really important for me to learn, because I thought I'd be really passionate about, not to say that working in intelligence isn't really interesting, but I thought that'd be my holy grail. That's something that I would love doing. And while I do like it, I kind of realized that might not actually be something that I want to do for the rest of my life as a career. And I think kind of recognizing that certain passions might not lead to that was really enlightening to me. And also, getting that experience. And like you mentioned before, faculty mentors have been incredible to me in this kind of field, because a lot of our faculty mentors have had so much experience, and they do have insight into helping students with various different career paths. So kind of talking to my mentor, Dr. Fran Buntman at GW, she's dipped her feet into everything in her career. So kind of talking to her about what I'm interested in, she had really good advice on, where to kind of go to get that experience, or, maybe that's not something you can super easily turn into a career based off of what you want out of life. So I think kind of doing informational interviews, talking to people that are in those fields, those are really important experiences that I've had, because certain things that like I said, that I thought I'd really enjoy, talking to some people in those fields, I'm like, oh, the day-to-day work of that isn't my favorite. And then kind of pivoting off of that, taking my skills, my experience, what I think I would like, and kind of just keep moving forward on that kind of daily grind towards, what's it is important. But like I said, I obviously I resonate with that question. I have way too many things I'm interested in, and post-grad's going to be a journey. So, I say that now, but there's a chance I'm going to end up in a field that I just said.
It is a grind, right? And I appreciate and respect you saying that. Just to expound upon one thing you mentioned, Emily, informational interviews. Can you share a little bit more about what that is and how that works?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of informational interviews in the last couple of years, mostly related to my grant project, but also I've done informational interviews not only with, people who run nonprofits, but also other students. And so basically what that is, is kind of reaching out to someone in a field or, working in a position that you want to and kind of asking like, hey, do you have a little bit to chat about what you do? I'm really interested in this field, and kind of getting a more personal, like more in-depth knowledge versus like a job description. Because I think hearing someone else's day-to-day experience in a position that you think you'd like, who has probably the same passions that you do, is kind of like information that you really can't get anywhere else. And so I did a lot of them informationally, not in regards to job searches, but also in regards to, just work that they do in general, to see if my project was comparable with their work and, was compatible. And that was really important. Through those informational interviews, I gained a huge network, which I think is also something that informational interviews is really important for. I'm now in connection with, international organizations, with huge, organizations within DC that are compilations of other nonprofits. So those informational interviews have really gotten me in touch with some really, really fantastic people that I know that I could reach out to again if I ever needed any advice or any help, or wanted to partner with them, or just, get a coffee and chat. So I think building that network through informational interviews has also been really great for me.
Thank you for that. And shameless plug, because I'm moderating this, I get one shameless plug. That's what Nathaniel told me, or at least that's what I'm saying. On Wednesday, April 13th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., Horizon Hall Atrium Space, we have a link up event. It's an in-person event. And essentially it is an alumni student networking event. So it is, for lack of better words, an informal informational interview event. I sent an email out to everybody at the undergraduate level a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, with that RSVP link in it. If you want to attend, please do so. If you can't find the link, let me know. And towards the ends of this conversation, I can throw it in the chat box. Diana, passions.
So yeah, Emily said something that's key, I think, and that informational interviews are fantastic from the moment that you're interested in anything. Asking them, what do you like about your job? What do you dislike about your job? I think are very important questions, because every job has its good sides, and then it's also very tedious, very, unpleasant work. And so, but you have to do it, right? It's part of the job. And so I think talking to people that practice what you're interested in is really, 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 really helpful. And like she said, it allows your network to grow. I think also, just, I have spent a few hours, embarrassingly, on Google, just like, what does such and such do? How much do they make? Just to kind of get an idea. Because I was actually also interested in user-friendly, or yeah, when it comes to IT, user-friendly in that field. And so I was looking up that information as well, on Google. So it really is just a matter of continuing to search and continuing to network and ask people questions, and also like reach out to your friends. I'm sure like people are doing internships or working for certain offices, and I'm sure your friends are a lot more candid about their experiences, so you can get a better feel for what it is that you like or that you don't like, or which passion is worth pursuing. So
thank you, Diana. Lizzie?
This is such a good question. I feel like it's the quintessential sociologist problem, is that we have to learn about everything, and then you have to pick one thing you do. I feel really, really lucky that in my office, we do address so many different issues. So I feel like I've won that I get to do this. And also in my, next career move, when I graduate from this program and move into being a school counselor, I feel like I'll be doing a similar thing, right? Where it can be all of these different areas that I'm interested in. But I feel like you don't have to choose. I feel like I really like the idea of keeping an open mind, and it's way easier said than done. It actually takes like a lot of self-control and discipline to not silo yourself into any given area. I absolutely was doing that with nonprofits. For a while, I was only applying to nonprofits. I was like, no, I love and working for nonprofits. We're not about making money. And then I quickly learned that a lot of the friends I knew who were working in nonprofits were also unhappy, and that there was a lot of toxicity in some nonprofits. Nonprofits are very complex places. And I think that I had this like fantasy of what I thought a nonprofit job would be, that it turned out that that wasn't really what it was. And that's from the people I was talking to, not really what it was for them either. Because being my first job out of school, I loved it just because it was a job and it was really cool. And it was, something in the community I wanted to be working with. But when I started working in education, something clicked and I was like, I like students, which is when it's kind of hard to know you want to work in higher ed or any kind of school when you're in college, because you're with students all the time. It's almost like you can't even think about it because it's weird. But it was in the survey lab supervising undergrads that I realized I really, really liked our relationships. I loved when they would ask about, what they should do after graduation. And this position that I'm in now, I realized I kind of want to work with them before they even get here. And that's when I started thinking about school counseling or practicing with an LPC after school counseling at some point. So I feel like it's making peace with the fact that you don't get that choice maybe, or that, it's almost like a privileged outlook to that, like, I'm going to choose and I'm going to get what I choose, right? That it's really just like you get opportunities presented to you and you make choices about accepting them or declining them. And then those opportunities lead to other ones. And if you're fortunate enough to get to do your interests in practice, that's awesome. But also it's okay to have interests and be an activist and be engaged without that being your job. So it's awesome to do that as well. And you don't have to be doing it to care.
Yeah. And a quick little anecdote to add to that, Lizzie, is my undergrad degree was environmental and sustainability studies. And I used to tell people that I was going to save the world one tree at a time. There's just an easy way for me to summarize it, but I had a lot of interest within that field. And after a couple of internship opportunities, one was with a nonprofit, I quickly came to realize that I wanted to spend my time outdoors, not on someone else's clock, right? That was a passion for me outside of working a 9-to-5 or whatever the case may be. And I didn't even entertain the idea of working in higher education, but I've been, in one capacity or another for the last 7 years, and I love it. So keeping your mind open to the opportunities, and also knowing that first job right after your undergrad degree studies isn't your only job, right? It's not the end all be all. You don't have to be stuck in that job for the next 30, 40 years. That job might lead to other opportunities, so on and so forth. Sam.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's been so much good stuff said. Just kind of really quickly wanted to piggyback off of what Lizzie said. Two things that she said really resonated with me. About one, I'm kind of the mentality that you don't really have to pick one passion. There is such beautiful combinations of your passions that are out there that you haven't even really considered. And like I said, sociology is present in so many more fields and job opportunities than you would just think of when you type in sociology jobs or sociology careers. So I'm of the mindset that you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to just one passion or one type of work that you're doing. And also your passions don't always have to be your career. Like sometimes your passions can just be your personal activism or your personal work that you do in your own time outside of your job. And also that your first job outside of undergrad is not your career. I just want to put that out there. You are starting baby steps, and it's not just if you end up in a job that you don't like, it's not the end of the world. And to piggyback off of what Emily and Diana were saying about the informational interviews, I think LinkedIn is such an important and great tool. I know we all have heard about it, but really just spending some time on there, looking at different fields, different jobs, different positions that you think might be interesting, and honestly reaching out to folks on LinkedIn saying, I am, a recent graduate. I have this degree. I'm interested in your field for XYZ. Can we set up a virtual coffee chat? And folks are more than happy to sit down and share and kind of ask those questions like Diana was saying. What do you do all day? What's your job like? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And I think really being able to have those conversations and just kind of exploring what is out there will kind of naturally lead you to find those opportunities like Lizzie was talking about that land you in those positions where you're like, oh, wait, this is actually kind of cool. But it really takes having an open mind and not really, focusing on siloing yourself so much. But yeah, definitely LinkedIn is one of my favorite resources, and a resource that I think often gets overlooked because we're all like, oh, LinkedIn, it's like a social media account. But if you actually go in there and do work and like try to connect with people, it's a really great resource. And another way to expand your network if you haven't really had the opportunity to do it in person. I know we've been remote, hybrid / whatever for the last, several years. So that's also a great way to build your network and meet people as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And I want to just take a moment and thank the audience members for their questions. We have a lot of questions. It's a good problem to have. We have a lot of questions and not enough time to get through all of them. So I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to kind of quickly look through a couple of these questions. Some of these questions have already been answered through our panelists answering other questions. So one that I want to focus on is just quickly touching on this. If we can get, each panelist to quickly touch on this or reiterate maybe something that was already mentioned. I transferred to my current institution from another much smaller college. Because of COVID and being at a new school, I feel like I don't really get to build up professional relationships that the panelists are talking about. How does this person overcome that? And
I can sort of relate to this. So I'll go ahead first, just because I remember I did this program at Mason before starting undergrad. And it was for students who were going to go to Mason all 4 years. I unfortunately couldn't do that right away. So I had to attend Nova before I attended Mason. When I graduated from Nova and then started at Mason, I felt like an outsider. I didn't know anybody. All of the people who I had known from the program that I did before I started undergrad were very well acquainted with the campus, the resources, the professors, each other. And so it was very, sad. I felt very alienated. And so perhaps it's not the same exact thing because obviously I had the option to at least attend campus and be there in person. But I think that what I did was rely on what I did know or the people that I did know to meet new people. And so I think that it to overcome this, it could be helpful to talk to people that you already know, your friends that you already know, and have them put you in contact with people that they've met through their own network, through academia, through anything, anybody that interests you. Like if you have friends and you can express like, I'm interested in such and such, do you know anybody? I think that's how networking is really powerful. And if you can use your current resources, even if they're limited, I'm sure that you can at least get to know somebody. And then once you get to know that somebody, you can ask them for somebody else. So sort of using people as resources of communication and networking, I think can really help you overcome, the difficulty that COVID has brought.
Definitely. Lizzie?
I totally agree. I think that it's connections start with friends. I think all of my friends either made in class or work at Mason. And then opportunities came from there, right? So like a group of friends in undergrad, we formed a sociology club, which I'm so proud. I saw someone post something about the sociology club. I don't think ours lasted, but I'm really proud that there's a new iteration. It's challenging. Sociologists are cool and we don't use social media, so it's hard to keep a club. But I say that because it was our study groups in theory where we became friends. So it was really, a group of friends that we were like, we really love sociology. And then when the opportunity presented itself of there's no club, do you guys want to make a club? It was just a group of us that became an e-board. And then that was a whole other thing that we could add to our resume and connected us to professors we didn't know yet. So really just, it sounds kind of dirty in a way to like, not dirty in that way, dirty in a way of like using your friends as connections. Like you don't want to take a friendship relationship and try to capitalize on it for personal gain, right? But at the same time, networking doesn't have to be you're wearing suits at a networking event. It can really just be going up to your professor after class or in their office hours and saying like, I am really interested in, abolishing prisons. Do you know anybody who knows anything about that? And then just going from there. But it does take a couple seconds of bravery and courageousness to do those things, but they really pay off.
Definitely, Lizzie. Sam.
Yeah, I want to just echo, I hate networking. Small talking is so uncomfortable, but it's really a really valuable skill, and kind of like Lizzie and Diana have been talking about and alluding to, kind of using the folks that you already know is such a great way to start building your network and seeing who they know and snowball sampling out that way and seeing who you can get a hold of. And like I was mentioning earlier, in this kind of like virtual world, really don't be afraid to send that LinkedIn connect or send that email or reach out to folks that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to speak with at your campus. But you're like, oh, I heard so-and-so is doing this kind of work. I would love to reach out. Don't be afraid to send that email or send that LinkedIn connect and get in contact with somebody that way as well, and use our online tools as well as our in-person ones. But I definitely think relying on the folks that you already know and seeing who they know and who they can put you in contact with is a great way to start building your network.
Yes, and just to piggyback off of that, Sam, I've been asked on a couple of different occasions for an informational interview, and I jumped at the opportunity to talk, let's be honest, about myself, right? It's the easy thing that I know the most about. And as it relates to my work, it's something that I'm passionate about. So I want to talk about it, right? And
exactly.
I'm going to call Nathaniel out. I think at a link up event, he asked me about working in higher education, and I was just yammering away.
People love to talk about what they're passionate about. So don't, it's nervous and it's scary. And like Lizzie said, take that, deep breath and get some bravery. But like Troy said, people love the opportunity to talk about themselves and talk about what they love. So don't forget that and remember that as you reach out to folks.
And if they're discontent in their work, they're going to tell you. And so you can get the good, the bad, and the ugly from those conversations. Emily.
Yeah, so I will definitely say I agree with what everyone's already said so far. I did kind of feel the same way in the sense that, my first couple of years at GW, criminal justice is a really small major. And within, the people that I knew at GW, there wasn't anyone that I was close with that, shared that same passion, except for, in my classes. But, you wouldn't be able to tell I was aggressively introverted and like very shy coming into college. So like me, like talking to people in my class or like, going to a professor was like, not gonna happen, so like having that like group of people in my like major and my field was like something I didn't have for, I would say, up until literally my junior year. And then finally I got the courage to reach out to my sociology of law professor, who's currently my mentor, and ask her just for help because I had no idea what was going on in the class. And I was like, hey, I have this like very nothing idea for a project, like can you help me? And that's literally turned into like basically my like side career today. So it's just one of those, and she's also introduced me to amazing people through her network. And like, yeah, networking like literally sucks. Like as much as I love doing, it can be really time consuming. Like it can be really hard to like take that first step to send that email, because I know for me, I'll be like, oh, I should send that email to that person and like have a chat, and I'll send it like 3 weeks later because it's taking me so long to like build up the nerve, because I'm like, what if they say no? But something I've realized is like the worst thing that they can say is no. And like 99.9% of the time, people are willing to like help you and like hang out and chat, even if it's not in like a professional aspect, because I've had people say no because they were busy, you know, or just say no because they didn't think it was going to be a match, and that's fine. And through those kind of like no's, I found other people, like really great people who have said yes. So it's kind of just one of those things where it takes a lot of time to get to those professional relationships, but like meeting, just like reaching out to just one person is like a really great step just to take, because you never know who they're going to know, and like just keep on spiraling from that.
Definitely, Emily. And you mentioned a very important word, you know, as people embark into this networking expedition of sorts, and that's courage, right? It takes courage. It takes stepping outside of your comfort zone. And me as an amateur environmentalist who likes working outside in gardens and whatnot, when we prune away shrubs, right, that's disturbance, and disturbance can sometimes foster new growth if we allow it, if we have the courage to kind of face that head on. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it alone, right? Maybe you visit a professor during office hours with one of your buddies, you know, with one of your classmates who has a similar question or concern. So you can utilize the buddy system is what I'm getting at. And with that being said, it is 6:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are fashionably late beyond our allotted time, but I want to allow our panelists final thoughts, final remarks in loose parameters here, 2 sentences or less. Whoever wants to go first, please be my guest.
I'll start. This is hard. Be kind to yourself. It's really hard and it's okay, but you deserve the success, you deserve your graduation, and you deserve to have work that is fulfilling.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Yeah, I put it in the chat already, but just to reiterate, you might hear a lot of no's. That's okay. No's are really powerful redirects. And I'll leave you with some very powerful dad advice that my dad always tells me. But if the bus doesn't stop for you, it's not your bus. So keep on trying, keep an open mind, keep on pushing, and trust that what is supposed to be for you will be for you. So
Thank you, Sam.
I would say networking is the most powerful skill to learn at this stage. Well, at the undergrad stage, I'm assuming many of you are. And networking is really just it. And even in small ways, sort of what Lizzie was saying, you don't have to wear a suit or attend events. Talk to your friends. Talk to friends. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. So network.
Yeah, kind of building what everyone else is saying, you know, like everyone's been saying, you know, your passion doesn't need to be your career. I think that's really important. Something that I've definitely like really, I'm going to try and, you know, take advice of myself. But I think something that I've learned, you know, is, you know, kind of push past any imposter syndrome, because that's really been big for me. Imposter syndrome. Like, I don't think I'm qualified for this. Like, yes, you are, and you're not going to know until you try, at least. Like, don't look at a description and be like, oh, like that doesn't, I don't hit every single one of those qualifications. Like, give it your best effort, apply. Like, it never hurts to just like throw your name into the ring, and you never know where that's going to get you. So I would definitely say, yeah, talk to everyone, take all the opportunities you can, even if you don't think that it's for you. It never hurts to give anything a chance, to give other people a chance to kind of offer their help to you. So it just, yeah, like I keep saying, it's just the daily grind. Like, you just got to keep pushing, and like ultimately you will hit that goal, and it'll be great, even if that's not what you think it is going to be. And in right now.
Awesome. Lizzie, Emily, Diana, and Sam. I'm blown away by you all. Y'all are just stellar. And, you know, I usually have words. I always have words. I always want to talk, but I'm speechless. I appreciate you all being here with us this evening, sharing your perspectives, your advice, your struggles, right? Your resiliency. Definitely inspirational words. So thank you all. And thank you all as members of the audience for your kind attention, for your thoughtful questions.